South Africa played a role in the historic Artemis II lunar flyby, a moment that has gripped the world as humans travelled further from Earth than ever before. The South African National Space Agency's Hartebeesthoek ground station was contracted to track the spacecraft alongside other stations around the globe because of its unique positions. And I'm joined by Raoul, Hodges, Executive Director of SANSA Space Operations, to tell us more. Hi Raoul, nice again to have you at BizNews.
Yeah, thanks.
So what exactly was your role in tracking the Orion spacecraft?
So to be able to track a spacecraft such as Orion, you need multiple stations. First of all, you've got humans on board, and therefore human life is key. So you have a backup for a backup for a backup. So you get a company creates a network on behalf of NASA, and they then choose a lot of stations, and they contract those stations to see that Orion capsule when possible. So you don't see it permanently. The Earth rotates, it's going to the moon. So some stations see it, some don't. And then as the Earth rotates, you have opportunity to see it, and that's how they distinguish which ground station is going to track that probe at what time. So what is SANSA's role? You must remember SANSA does not have a huge deep space antenna at the moment. So we're using an antenna whereby we can use it to give what we call one-way Doppler or TM data. We call it TM data or one-way Doppler. That measures where the spacecraft is. So you have the angles of the antenna, and you have then you basically you send signals to the capsule, and you measure how fast those signals come back. That tells you how far it is and how fast it's moving. And by taking 3 stations and doing that, you have a perfect position of that capsule. And that's the part that we play when we have visibility of the spacecraft via our station. That data gets relayed, does not go through the station, gets relayed via the antenna, through the fiber network, and straight to the owner of the capsule or the spacecraft.
So could you actually see it at what stage of its orbit?
Yes. So when it's time, we call it AOS. And when we lose it, we call it LOS, acquisition of spacecraft, or LOS is loss of spacecraft. And when the time comes up, we sit and wait. And the antenna is parked there at what we call look angles, at the angles where it's going to see this arrival of the capsule. And then normally you see the signal come up on a spectrum analyzer. So we don't see a visual of it. It's just like the signal's there, and we see the signal come up, and we measure the signal and say, okay, we now have lock. We lock onto it. The antenna does auto track and just follows it for the period that we're going to see it. And as the Earth rotates, we move away from it, if it makes sense. So yes, we've had several passes with a spacecraft where we relayed the information, and some of the passes we're just a backup, and some of the passes we prime. And if you have a failure, somebody else becomes prime, and somebody else becomes backup, and you fix your problem, and then you come back on air. So it's quite complex. As I said, we're a small fish in the pond, but we're in the pond.
So did you feel a sense of excitement, or is this just part of your day job?
I think it's gripped the world because of the enormity of it. So it has also gripped us, and everybody's on his laptop and his cell phone. Where are we now? When's touchdown? When is the maneuver? Why did we lose signal? I mean, we lost the signal when we went around the back of the moon, because nobody can see the back of the moon, and that was specific of this rendezvous, is to see the back end of the moon, the dark side. We call it the dark side. And that information then, once we got communication again, proved a lot of the theories that were planned for. And a lot of Artemis is planning and testing concept for the next one and for the next one. So if you get it right this time, it must work next time. And that's what it's all about at this stage of all these Artemis programs.
Well, for people who might not know the station, what makes Hartebeesthoek critical in missions like this?
So if you have a look at where the moon sits, and if you have a look at where we're going 2030, 2035, 2040, is we want to, the plan is to inhabit the moon. So how are you going to do it? You got to start asking those questions. What do I need? The first thing you need is communications. And the minute you put satellites or communication satellites around the moon, you want to see them 24/7. To be able to do that, you need southern hemisphere and northern hemisphere antennas, ground stations. South Africa sits in the southern hemisphere. It makes it key. And it was one of the major reasons South Africa was used in the prior 1963 to 1976 with the moon missions. Because it's about the location. Where does it sit? Same with Australia and the same with South America. And then you have a lot of stations in the northern hemisphere because that's where the biggest part of land sits, or if you want to put it that way. So you need stations north and south. South Africa is extremely lucky to be in the right location, let alone the skills and the years of experience that we have. As we started in 1958, we're still continuing. That's close. That's pushing 67 years in the space industry, and we're still continuing and we're still growing. Hartebeesthoek is growing very well. A lot of interest, and we're still busy building the Micas Fontaine ground station, which we hope to finish by 2027, end of 2027. So we've broken ground, and we're busy building that in conjunction with the Department of Science and Technology.
So the antennas that you use, when were they built?
So the one antenna we're using at the moment is a 12-meter antenna, which was built in 1963.
No, that long back.
Yeah. We still maintain it, and it still works perfectly well. The other one we're using as a backup to the 12-meter is what we call the LSX antenna, and that was put up in 1988. It's the right frequency band. So we've got many antennas, but they're not the right frequency band. So you need each antenna works with different spacecraft with a different frequency. It depends on the frequency, whether it's S band, X band, KU, KA, whatever.
So how does these interactions with the international space agencies, whether it's NASA or whoever, how does it work? Do they contract you to do this?
Yes. So space agencies contract each other, and people would think, yeah, this is a huge business. It's not that huge. So in space, we all basically work together. So if your spacecraft's in trouble and it's in our airspace, we will track your spacecraft. We will help you. And that's the brotherhood in the space industry. But if you're launching a spacecraft, a commercial spacecraft, or you're doing tracking data down for Earth observation purposes or whatever, there's commercial agreements between us. A lot of the ground stations are becoming commercial. A lot of still stay space owned. So it's becoming a thriving business in the long run. But yes, we contract each other.
So looking ahead, what role could you play, and what would it be? Artemis III, Artemis IV, and beyond? And the Chinese want to put somebody on the moon by, was it 2030?
Yeah. So all of these plans basically play into our strategy. So our strategy is to build ground stations and be ready for when these Artemises or the Chinese or the Japanese or anybody in the space race goes up and needs a ground station to be able to download and bring their data back. So we plan those things ahead and build that infrastructure so it's ready at the time that those big players need it. And then we will contract to networks so that, and Artemis is going to be a huge project, massive. A lot of stuff has to go to the moon before you can live there. So hopefully we can be one of the players to do that and continue sending or receiving data and sending it back via networks. And hopefully our plan with the department and ourselves comes to fruition in Matjiesfontein.
Well, Artemis is returning tomorrow, and you obviously following this and have knowledge about this. So is this the most dangerous part, this fireball that they will be when they come back to Earth?
Yes. So there's two parts, as I've explained. The first part is the liftoff. You're sitting on a big cracker. And it takes off at a huge speed, and so that's the first part. I think, in my humble opinion, is the dangerous part, and coming back, hitting the atmosphere at that speed, and that's going to happen 2:00 our time tonight, so it's going to, and then splash down into. So it gets through the atmosphere. The temperatures are quite high. You talk about between 300 and 3,000 and 5,000 Celsius. That's a huge temperature. So, but it's all planned for. It's all designed. It's not the first one. So it comes with all that engineering and previous attempts and proven attempts. So I think that, to me, those are the two critical parts of such an event.
So what I gathered from you, what you're saying is South Africa is not only in a unique geographical position, you're literally planning for this space race almost that is, ignited again now.
Yes. It's part of our strategy to grow and to bring the youth in and educate them and give them the opportunity to be part of that race and to become part of the international space race. And South Africa has got plans and strategies in place to go forth.
How are you planning to bring the youth in?
Well, when we start building stuff like the ground station at Matjiesfontein, we train these people here at Hartebeesthoek, and we will let them loose in Matjiesfontein, well trained, and because you're going to need the same staff you have here in a place like Matjiesfontein, and it's 1,000 kilometers from here. So you're going to link the two stations to each other, but you're going to need 24/7 operations. You're going to need artisans, engineers, operators and stuff at that ground station. So it's a duplication of what you got here with more modern technology. So it's highly skilled. So that's how we plan to bring in the youth and train people up to become part of that industry.
So can we just talk before we end off about Micas Fontaine? Is that going well?
Yes, we've handed over the site in April. So we hope to see construction start here by the end of April. All goes well. And it's about 16 months. Then the facilities and the power station, the guardhouse and the fence and all that will be finished. And so do we see how it goes from there.
Well, Raoul Hodges, that's so interesting. And we're all watching this return of the moon mission, and you seem to be in exactly the right place. So thank you so much.
Thanks for your time and thanks for the opportunity.